$5 trillion is spent a year in healthcare. The vast majority of that, 4.9 trillion, goes into dealing with problems once they've already happened, chronic and mental health conditions. You'll see that what they eat, how they behave, how much they move, lifestyle and diet, in a nutshell, together with environmental exposures, explain the vast majority of that.
The 60-second summary is that there's no way on earth we're going to end chronic disease in America unless we allow freedom of informed choice and get access to truthful health information down to the individual level and allow a patient-centric system to operate in America.
Welcome to today's episode of Decentralized TV here on brightvideos.com. I'm Mike Adams, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Todd Pittner. Welcome, Todd, to show number, what is it, like 115 or something? What?
115, 120.
How many have we done?
We'll round up to 200, Mike.
Okay, and also just to answer the question from the audience, why do I have this computer on my desk? This is a TRS-80 from Radio Shack. From many, many years ago, many decades ago, actually. Yeah, go ahead and show that again. Give people a good look. And we're going to be decorating this with some old computers. I've got an Apple IIe on the way. And then there's going to be an interesting theme about that in upcoming shows about decentralized cognition. But anyway, that's what that's all about.
Mike, what does the T stand for in TRS?
Well, we used to call it the Trash 80, of course, was the nickname for it.
Okay.
TRS. I don't remember what the T stand. Oh yeah, Tandy. It was
Tandy. Yes.
Research Systems.
Tandy
or something?
Tandy Radio Shack.
Tandy
was
Radio
the
Shack.
corporate name.
That's right. That was the name of Radio Shack. And then of course Radio Shack went bankrupt.
Yep.
And then I thought somebody bought the rights to it and tried to bring it out of bankruptcy or something.
Yeah.
But we missed those days of being able to go buy components.
Don't we? I was telling my wife, we were recently talking about Radio Shack and Blockbuster, and I was telling her, I miss going into the store, so especially Blockbuster. I have 4 daughters, and I just remember the days to where that was just part of what we did on a Friday night. We would all go together, and you of course see the same ones every time you go in there every Friday. But it was just kind of fun. Those were the good old days when we actually got out and saw people.
Those were the days when your computing was local, because and the government wasn't spying on your computer usage because there was no cloud. And then when you rented a VHS tape from Blockbuster, there was no database that knew what you watched.
Exactly.
Right? So you actually had privacy back then because it was on tape, or in this case, it was on, floppy disk, right? So this is secure. Because there was no technology to spy on you. But anyway, things have changed dramatically. And in a segue to our guest today, we have a really amazing show that's also about how government is trying to restrict your freedom and your access to health and food and nutrition and natural medicine. Are you ready for this show?
Let's do it, Mike.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
The war on nutritional truth. Bring it on.
All right, let's welcome our guest today, attorney Jonathan Emord, great American hero, and Robert Verkerk of the Alliance for Natural Health USA and other branches. Welcome, gentlemen, both of you. It's an honor to have you both on the show.
Great to be with you.
Fantastic to be with you.
Well, your message, at anh-usa.org, your organization, Robert, has fought for the health freedom and for access to natural health solutions for many, many years. And Jonathan, your work is legendary with the FDA and defeating, attacks on the natural health industry and everything from nutrition, homeopathy, you name it. But now the world's a little different today. Now we're in a war. Now food shortages are anticipated next year. And the government seem to be getting a lot more aggressive, actually, at thinking they get to rule everybody. So Let me start with whoever wants to go first, but can you give me kind of a State of the Union overview of where you think we are, either Jonathan or Robert?
Totally happy. Let me just give a sort of a big picture. If you look at the United States, the bottom line is that despite the current administration, $5 trillion is spent a year on healthcare. And the vast majority of that, 4.9 trillion, goes into dealing with problems once they've already happened, chronic and mental health conditions. So basically, if you look at the overall science that tries to explain why the United States sits some 80th in the global rankings of health-adjusted life years. That's the number of years that Americans or other people stay healthy. You'll see that what they eat, how they behave, how much they move, lifestyle and diet, in a nutshell, together with environmental exposures, explain the vast majority of that.
Yes.
But it's there's a tiny amount of priority given that. And that is the problem. That's one of the reasons that a lot of people are saying, do you know what? We are not going to wait until the government solves this problem. Yes, the regulatory system, as Jonathan will explain, has always been there to protect monopolies. But there are more and more people that saying, we now have to take control ourselves. Funnily enough, the system doesn't like that very much in the same way, here we are talking about decentralization. Around the world, you can see that the systems are pretty uncomfortable about people who choose not to have an address because they become nomadic, for example. I'm one example doing exactly that.
Well, Robert, the systems have their own immune systems, don't they? They fight off reformers.
Well, yeah. And, if we look at the immune system, I think that the world is actually going through a bit of an autoimmune crisis. Have you noticed how intolerant people are of each other? And that is a manipulation of behavioral psychology, where people are being pitched against each other so that even if there's the slightest difference of opinion on a specific issue, you literally exclude, you cancel those people from your life. And if you look at any of the game plans that the World Economic Forum and others have had for a totalitarian control system, it involves trying to upregulate social conflict. And that's where we are today.
Wow. Well said. All right, Jonathan, from your take, you're involved in so many regulatory actions and lawsuits against various governments. What are you seeing?
Well, I'm seeing an unfortunate proclivity on the part of a lot of people, particularly young people, to buy into collectivism rather than individualism. So at the same time that you have a very strong movement worldwide for individuals to recognize that freedom of individual choice is a paramount necessity, and that governments need to conform to allow people greater liberty by reducing their size and scope, you have this counter movement afoot, particularly among a good segment of the youth worldwide, where they're demanding that government be an end-all be-all, where they're talking about toppling the capitalist system and replacing it with socialism or communism. Apparently ignorant of the history in the world of communism and socialism as the bane of civilization. In February of last year, a number of academics, Rob and myself, and a whole bunch of people in the health freedom space and practitioners of medicine and nutrition science and so on gathered in Phoenix, Arizona for a conference to discuss this decentralization issue and to find out how it dovetailed with individual liberty and how we could expand both freedom of choice and individual liberty at the same time by getting rid of a lot of the government barriers to things. And what was interesting, we with Rob's direction of that meeting, we succeeded in getting a consensus from the group, a very large group, on the solutions, because it was private in the sense that they could freely articulate their problems. And they found that the other members had the same kinds of problems, all involving governmental barriers that prevented them from competing with big pharma, competing with big companies in the big food space, in introducing innovation in their areas, and also communicating truthful information about nutrients and disease to their customers, as well as truthful information concerning how to treat disease. So what came out of this is a consensus statement, which is truly a remarkable document in its detail. It sets forth all the principles that underlie a free people and underlie freedom of informed choice, and the end, the way to end the chronic disease epidemic in America.
Is this document available on the ANH website, by the way? I'm wondering if I can pull it up.
It sure is. If you go to arizonastatement.org, you'll find the link directly to it. And that is really, we're looking for as many Americans as possible to sign up to that. It's a statement that was made in Arizona. It is, as you'll see, it is not just for the people of Arizona, it's for the people of all American states.
Okay, I've got it on my screen here. It is, okay, you said arizonastatement.org, and then it forwards to this page, and here it is, the statement that you were just mentioning there, Jonathan. So can you give us just a quick version of this? If you were to, what's the 60-second summary of what the statement says?
The 60-second summary is that there's no way on earth we're going to end chronic disease in America unless we allow freedom of informed choice and get access to truthful health information down to the individual level and allow a patient-centric system to operate in America. Without a patient-centric system operating, instead of a top-down approach, we're never going to be able to solve this, because it really depends on human action, each person doing what's in their own best interest. But in order to do what's in your own best interest, you have to know what that is. And the only way to know what that is if truthful information it reaches you about the right kinds of foods to eat, about the right kinds of lifestyle, and about nutritional elements and so forth. Without that, we're just not going to be able to get there. And one of the things that's truly remarkable about this is that it really does show, both in its principles and in its specific actions, how to do it. So it's kind of a futuristic document in that it predicts what has to be done in order to achieve the outcome. And conversely, it really rather dramatically shows if we don't take these steps, that we are bound to not only have the horrible chronic disease epidemic we have right now, but it'll get a lot worse.
Yeah,
I mean, when you consider that, you look at the American population, most people don't realize this, but over 90% of adult Americans have at least one chronic disease. And the vast majority of us are going to, unless there's a dramatic change, we're going to be dying before we reach 75 years of age.
Wow, and extraordinary costs associated with the management of chronic degenerative disease.
Right.
Now, let me react to something you said, and then we're going to bring in Todd. And by the way, have you two met Todd before?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. All right.
Jonathan, I know that we interviewed you before, and I would highly encourage, we were just doing a summary looking at what's really been popular since we began, and yours was it was a very popular interview, and it was very informative. So I really encourage people to go back to decentralized.tv and just scroll down and find Jonathan Emord's initial interview. It was fantastic.
Yeah, and everything Jonathan predicted over a decade ago has come true, like the fiefdoms of these agencies making up their own laws and rolling those out. I mean, it's all come true, the tyranny. But one thing you said, Jonathan, I want to react to is the youth taking on socialism. They are being promised now, because of the rise of AI, which is a completely separate topic, they're being promised a universal high income. And they believe, Jonathan, because they don't understand economics, they believe that the government can print wealth and can hand it out to all the people, and that those younger generations will never have to work. They can just spend and consume and live life and thank government, their father and their mother, big government, for protecting them through their entire lives. They believe that. That's what's happening.
Yeah, there's an economic principle called Say's law, which it comes out of the 18th century. And it's that really the economic value of things is based on supply. So if you don't produce something of economic value for other people to purchase, you have no economy. And if individuals think that they can live as a whole population off of a guaranteed minimum income of some sort, they're entirely unrealistic, because there has to be somebody who makes that income happen. And that means they have to produce things of economic value. If they don't produce things of economic value, redistribution of wealth is impossible. But if redistribution of wealth is allowed to the extent they want it to happen, it destroys the incentive to be productive, so that you end up not having production happen anyway.
Yep.
So the only way that a society works to maximize individual freedom, individual satisfaction, and wealth for the majority is if you have a capitalist system, if you have a system in which individual freedom of choice reigns, and in which an individual knows, as Adam Smith says, that it's not through the benevolence of the butcher or the baker that you receive your meat and bread, but by his pursuit of his own self-interest. We have to understand that people are operating on their own self-interest. A lot of these kids think that they're going to be running the system. They presume basically that they're running the system. What they don't understand is, in a socialist or communist system, everyone is a slave, except those that rule. And they rule at precisely your expense.
Mm-hmm.
And the opposite is true of a system that has a free market. In a free market, individuals become their own champions, and other individuals are dependent upon them. But not only that, it's a moral system, because in order for me to be a champion, in order for me to succeed in a free market, I have to produce something of value to you. You have to be willing to pay for it. And that means I'm going to have to work to understand your needs and your interests and try to satisfy them. This system, that is the free market system, is really the only system in the history of mankind that has catapulted society from poverty to riches in the shortest period of time, and has raised the standard of living of mankind to a level that is unprecedented in anyone's wildest imaginings from the other side of the spectrum. Socialists never think that, because they have planned economies, they never think that the enormous innovation that drives a free enterprise economy is possible. That's why the Soviet Union collapsed. They simply could not understand how it was ever possible that a non-command economy could ever work so well. But allowing freedom to reign means that everybody can benefit. And sure, there are disparities in wealth, but you know what? Disparities in wealth are temporary in a free enterprise economy. Anybody can rise up the ladder if they have a good idea and it works for the benefit of others. But in addition to that, that dynamic aspect means that wealth accumulation lowers interest rates, has all the benefits of that, enables mass employment. And yet at the same time, you have individual initiative, which can create lower prices and can enable individuals who were poverty stricken to become wealthy. So,
Jonathan, I think one of the things that's working against those of us who support economic freedom, and then, by the way, it's Todd. Todd will have the next question here, but I just want to interject. What young people are seeing is the perversion of the system and the collusion between government and medicine to profit from sickness and disease. And so what they see, what the young people see, and I'm not defending their viewpoint, but what they are seeing is not the abundance potential of a free market system, but rather the corruption, collusion, cost of what is described as democracy, but is really a predatory medical system that preys upon people. And think about that. I'll give you a chance to respond to that, Jonathan, but Todd's got the next question for both of you.
So that is exactly what happened. I'm sorry. That is exactly what happens with unbridled democracy. In other words, when you have a society in which there is this collusion and it's allowed, we have it in our own society today, where you have 250 independent regulatory agencies that are unconstitutional by definition. There's no constitutional provision for the creation of independent regulatory agencies. In short, the founding fathers had it right. Government is best which governs least.
Yep.
A wise and frugal government shall restrain men from injuring one another, leave them otherwise free to regulate their pursuits of industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread it has earned. That is the sum of good government, Jefferson said. It was the sum of good government in the 18th century. It remains that way today. But if you allow industry to get favors by government, that's called fascism. That's
yes.
And that's the destruction of freedom. So what these kids don't understand is that the great old Constitution that was given to them by birth in this country, if they were born here, is the solution to the very problems they see. If you get back to limited government and understand truthfully that government is here for the sole purpose of protecting the rights of the governed, the four cardinal principles in the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. Those cardinal principles define a free people. All men are created equal, endowed by their creator, by God, with certain unalienable rights, among them the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The governments are instituted among men for the very purpose of protecting the rights of the governed, and the just governments derive their power from the consent of the governed. Those principles all have to be present in order for a brilliant republic like the American Republic to guarantee the liberties of all mankind and protect the rights of the minority. Without that, we have lost in this struggle for freedom. So what they ought to be is freedom fighters. And what they are instead, unwittingly, I think many of them, has become advocates of totalitarianism and slavery.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right.
Can I just throw in there that the question is why? Why do young people not understand it? And I think this is where we see an incredible manipulation of the human mind. We understand an awful lot through neuroscience and psychology how to do this, and the systems are creating such a sense of lack of safety amongst young people, especially. They have a lot of life ahead of them, and what they see is a situation so unsafe, they go for their replacement mommy and daddy, mom and pop. They're looking for something safe, and they resort to government because what government is telling them is that, exactly as Jonathan explained, if you allow industry to not be regulated, it is out of control. And even in our space, in the natural health space, you see this deception being put out all over the place. We're dealing with an FDA at the moment that's trying to tell you that homeopathic products that contain no discernible amount of active ingredient are really dangerous, and they need to be regulated in the same way as conventional drugs. And this is why today,
wow,
under Bobby Kennedy, under the current FDA, we've just lost Marty McCary. We have Carl Diamantis in place now, but still today, essentially all homeopathic products on the US market are illegal. Now, the bottom line is that government should be policing fraud. There's plenty of it out there. There's a lot of adulteration out there. There's evidence of demonstrable harm, but they sit doing nothing about that. Instead, what do they spend most of their time doing? Getting in the way of truthful information, getting in the way of innovation. These are exactly the things that can actually turn this chronic disease epidemic around. So until people feel safer, until these young people feel safe, until they unhook from the media machines and the social media machines that are conditioning them and programming them in that way, we're not going to win. And, Mike, this is why the job that you're doing with Decentralized TV is so important. Once you start hitting people to show them a side of the coin that they don't receive through CNN or any other major channel, they will start to think and feel differently about these issues.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And unlimited volumes of adulterated olive oil, no problem for the FDA, but homeopathy that can't possibly harm you, that's illegal, So no, Todd, it's your turn, but wow.
Sure.
You can tell, by the way, just the breadth of knowledge and intellectual capacity of our two guests today is incredible. So
I know, I'm just sitting back here and I have three observations based on what has been said, and then I have a question. But my first observation, Jonathan, is I realize now, thank you for the education on Say's Law, I realize that Elon actually evangelizes Say's Law because Elon says you'll be rich, right? So there's that. The other thing is, Rob, you had talked about 4.9 trillion. If people rewind and listen to that again, I do encourage you to do that because it was like a wow for me. Basically, you're talking about big medicine treatment is the 4.9 trillion versus the little bit that's left for prevention, right? So to me, I was thinking about that as an analogy. You can't buy car insurance after the car accident, right? And another way to put it is you cannot become the health ranger after the deep fried chicken and 2-liter Coke. So, with that,
So let me give it to you a different way. For every dollar that the federal government gives to the CDC for its nutrition, physical activity, and obesity prevention program, more than $35,000 flows through Medicare and Medicaid for drugs.
Wow.
30, so it's 1 to 35,000 is the ratio.
That is crazy. Well, the other thing I want to do, Rob, is thank you, because English accents always raise the bar on making our show appear to be smarter. So thank you for that. All right, I have a question. For decades, Americans have been told that they can legally hear pharmaceutical commercials every 5 minutes on television. Yet supplement companies often, they can't even discuss peer-reviewed nutritional benefits without regulatory threats. At what point, and I think, Jonathan, this would be to you, at what point did nutrition itself become treated like a dangerous form of dissent?
Well, this occurred really early on in the creation of the Food and Drug Administration in the 1930s. So you had the Food and Drug Administration shortly after its creation, dominated by the pharmaceutical industry. And then by the 1960s, after World War II, they solidified their control with the Kefauver-Harris amendments, where suddenly they were the only parties that could communicate therapeutic information. Now, what they did is create a false paradigm, and Dr. Verkerk is actually working on a publication, a peer-reviewed publication on this point. They created a false distinction between substances they said were drugs and substances they said were foods. How is it false? Well, all foods have therapeutic effects, as we know, and nutrients have therapeutic effects. In fact, there's 50 years of publication about how specific nutrients like selenium can reduce the risk of cancer, or omega-3 fatty acids can lower the risk of coronary heart disease, or a whole host of B6, B12, and folic acid in combination can lower the risk of vascular disease, or folic acid can reduce the risk of neural tube defect births. All of this information is in the peer-reviewed literature, but it has been incredibly hard to get it out to the public because the FDA censors it. But when it comes to a drug, the FDA has a whole regime for approval of these claims and routinely approves claims for drugs. What's the distinction? Well, the distinction is under the Act, anything intended for use in the cure, treatment, prevention, or mitigation of disease is a drug. Now, if I intend prune juice to treat chronic constipation, I've just turned prune juice into a drug. What is the legal impact of that? Well, that means if you sell prune juice and you dare tell the public this unbelievable truth that it can eliminate chronic constipation, you are suddenly subjected to criminal prosecution. You can be thrown in jail for a life term because each unit you sell will be subject to a separate criminal offense. And you can have your whole business destroyed and all of your products seized as contraband, as if it were heroin, seized and removed. Well, that regime only applies against the competition to drugs.
And you will be labeled a drug dealer.
Exactly.
You'll be called someone who sells illegal drugs.
Yeah. Why was this done? This was done because the FDA is a patsy for the drug industry from its very start, early on in its history, and has been made over the years to even be more wedded to protecting the drug industry. It was Dr. David Graham, who is the associate director of the Office of Drug Safety, who testified before Congress, Senator Grassley's finance committee at the time, that the American public was virtually defenseless because the FDA would approve all sorts of unsafe drugs because the drug industry controlled the FDA. And conversely, the FDA routinely censors all manner of nutrient disease claims because the drug industry doesn't want to experience competition from foods. It doesn't want the paradigm that it created in the 30s and 40s and 50s but saying that drugs are things that treat disease, not foods, ever shattered. Because if it's shattered, as soon as you break up that paradigm, the American public has an epiphany and they suddenly realize, wow, what I eat from day to day, what supplements I take from day to day is as much as important as anything I could possibly do to reduce my risk of cancer, to actually treat certain diseases, and to enable me to live a long life. It's that truth that is the chronic disease epidemic that creates it. It's the censorship of that information that creates the chronic disease epidemic. If people knew what to do with their health and how to maintain it and lived a preventive lifestyle, they would live beyond 72, 73 years, many, many more years, and they'd have healthier years of life. But instead, the whole system is designed to induce people only to go into it when there's a medical crisis, and otherwise disregard all preventive things. Why? Because that's the best interest of the drug industry. You sell more drugs, you have more surgeries, you have more reliance on the medical system in a crisis at much higher expense to you and much greater profitability if it's a crisis-based system. A preventive system that relies on pennies a day in choices. I take this supplement, I eat these foods, I live this lifestyle. That preventive lifestyle, which can save you from a heart attack, from cardiovascular disease, cancer, that is minimal expense, but it cuts out the drug industry, cuts out the medical, the allopathic medical industry, because you're eliminating the number and extent of crises you'll experience during your living years. So they don't care whether you die. It's just that they, as you're going along, they want to profit off of it.
100%, Jonathan, and our audience is very sophisticated and well-rounded on these subjects. And as you both know, I've been attacked and censored for nearly 25 years for teaching people how to not need pharmaceuticals to be healthy, how to use nutrition, etc. But here's the thing, Jonathan, that I'd like you to answer, and this is not a political show, not trying to make it political, but there was a lot of hope when Trump came into office this time with MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, RFK Jr. becoming head of HHS, McCary, as you mentioned, head of FDA previously. There was a lot of hope that there would be significant reforms. That did not happen. At least that's my point of view. You may have more information than I do, but it seems to me, and I'd love your answer on this, that this system can never be reformed from the inside, no matter who's president, no matter who's head of HHS. It is impossible to reform, and Trump has announced he's in business with all the top drug companies, with Trump RX. He's selling 600 pharmaceuticals now at just lower prices. But now our president is in business with Big Pharma, okay? That's just a fact of where we are. How do we get from there to the reforms that are needed that you've outlined in the Arizona statement, if ever?
I think that you're absolutely right that this is a structural situation where you can change who sits in what seat, and you might have a nice person who sits in the seat instead of a bad person who sits in the seat. But the fact of the matter is, until you change the power relationship, you're not going to get the extraordinary change that we need. And that's what the Arizona statement's all about. It's not enough that we change seats. What we have to do is cut out government. And what we talk about in the Arizona statement is all the changes that have to be made to eliminate barriers to competition, to eliminate barriers to access to information, to eliminate barriers that deprive people of innovation in medicine and all alternative healthcare options, and fully inform them of those and allow people, individuals, to exercise freedom of choice and be the masters of their own destiny instead of having bureaucrats decide that. That requires cutting out things like the FDA, cutting out the independent regulatory agencies of the government. That requires massive reduction in the size and scope of the government. I agree with you that fundamentally we're not going to see the changes that we need in order to achieve greater longevity and have people have healthier lives. In other words, conquer the chronic disease epidemic, so long as we have a government that overwhelmingly, in numerous ways, defends the interests of the drug companies, the financial interests of the drug companies, at the expense of the American people. And I, as you, have not seen any fundamental change in that dynamic. And unless there is a fundamental change in it, which I say comes about by a massive reduction in the size and scope of the federal government and getting rid of things like the FDA, we are not going to see a change that will enable the American people to become the masters of their own biological destiny again.
We would be healthier as a country without the FDA, in my opinion, and even without the CDC. Now, Todd, you're a great example. You've invested in growing a food forest, and that you've had that growing for several years. Even though you live in a neighborhood in Florida, you got HOA permission, which that's amazing, to grow a food forest. And now you're eating your own medicine every time you eat something out of that food forest. Now, I'm sure that's changed your own perception of the closeness to food and nutrients, but can you speak to that just briefly of,
Sure.
Isn't that a model that more Americans could follow? And then Dr. Verkerk, your comments on that after Todd answers, please.
Yeah, from farm to table. My farm is like 20 yards out my back door, right? And I go back there and I have a herb section and a lot of fruit trees and veggies and things like this. So yeah, we are harvesting from our food forest and eating as organically as I think that you can. Now, the weather modification that occurred the beginning of January, where it suppressed temperatures here in Tampa, Florida, for 2 weeks at 25 to 27 degrees. That just doesn't happen, folks. That put a damper into this season, but it has bounced back like crazy. So I'm really happy for that. But yeah, this show, our fourth episode, and I encourage people to go watch it, was with Jim Gale, the CEO of FoodForestAbundance.com. And that was when I became educated to even the notion of a food forest in your backyard. And during that interview, I'm like, well, I have an HOA. And he shared with me a little bit of law, and I fought the HOA for 6 frickin' months to be able to get the thumbs up. Maybe it wasn't quite 6 months. It was about 3 months. And they conceded. And so they did tell me I could only plant two fruit trees. But yeah, right. I didn't care, right, from that point on. So yeah, Mike, for me, it has been a total lifestyle change. And I do want to tell people that the promise of a food forest delivering, food and medicine short term, don't be enamored by that. It does take time. However, I will tell you, it immediately is food for the soul, and that counts as well.
True. Yeah. So Robert, your comments, because why don't more people grow their own medicine and herbs and so on?
Well, the same way that they continue to eat, food that kills them slowly, they don't have enough information. And to be able to do it, often you have more regulatory barriers. I mean, in essence, the system that Jonathan was describing, that has created this idea that we need new to nature molecules to deal with health problems is perverse. At every level, it's perverse. What they've done is create, since the 1960s, a drug licensing system that is effectively a pay-to-play system, irrespective of the data that shows that prescription medicines are the third leading cause of death. Look at Peter Gotch's work and others. Virtually any senior scientist who's spoken the truth on the problems caused by prescription medicine has been canceled by the system. But once they get that license, they can legally say that their product is safe and effective, even when the data says it's incredibly unsafe and totally ineffective. Right. So that system essentially, requires that a coach and horses is driven through all sorts of elements of a civilized society. And in the United States, that does involve the Constitution. It's one of the reasons that Jonathan's work with the First Amendment is so absolutely crucial. But it also involves the agencies in the administrative state going beyond their legal remit. So we have this absurd situation where they overreach the statutes over and over again. And obviously in July of 2024, the Chevron doctrine that had been around since 1984, following the Natural Defense Council versus Chevron case, that basically whenever there was ambiguity in a statute, allowed the agency to have deference. That continues to be used even after the death of Chevron.
That's crazy. I thought it was toppled.
Well, it was, but that's one of the reasons that we have around about 30 major initiatives. So if you look at the Arizona statement, behind that is the, if you like, the puzzle box top for what we're doing. So underneath that are 30 different initiatives that deal with all sorts of aspects of the food medicine space. And this includes the fact that, if you look at what's happening, even with the government at the moment, you've heard Bobby Kennedy talking about ultra-processed foods. Well, the latest policy advice they've taken on say, yep, we know that over 75% of foods that Americans are eating are ultra-processed. So they're taking in this NOVA Category 4 system that basically says there's not a skerrick of real food in there, and it's all involves chemically altered additional additives, things that are not beneficial to health. And that's the majority of the American diet, no wonder. But that very system doesn't take into account what's happening, say, with synbio, with synthetic biology, with bioengineered food. So the crisis that is being manufactured at the moment around food that can be solved by people doing what Todd is doing is going to be brought about by people seeing food shortages, and suddenly they will come in with a solution. You remember they did that very nicely with COVID. They held back and said, look, the solution is going to come with this incredible thing called an mRNA vaccine. They're going to be doing the same here. If you look at the amount of money that is going into lab-grown meats, precision fermentation, now all of these technologies are not going to be caught by the UPF system quite deliberately. Why? Because big food is involved with them. So they already know that the idea of producing, highly mechanically processed foods full of colors and flavors, that's going to die. But they have in the back room the next best thing. All of it is about making those guys who are deeply involved with the fascist system that we've been talking about, who are controlling the regulatory system, who created that pay-to-play system specifically for pharmaceutical drugs, who are trying everything they possibly can to disallow the food as medicine movement. There is a food is medicine movement. That is a sham for the food as medicine movement, which is what those of us in the integrative medicine space are pushing for. So if you're going to have food as medicine, you want to see food being prescribed by a doctor, by your local family physician. Do you know we're a million miles away from doing that? They don't have the education. They don't have a regulatory system that even allows that.
No, it's extraordinary. And it's why I can't even go to the grocery store anymore because I'm too horrified by what's in other people's shopping carts. And there's a total disconnect in their minds between the cancer they've been diagnosed with or the diabetes and what's in their shopping cart. They're eating cancer and eating diabetes. And what you mentioned, these cultured, genetically modified food replacements, it's going to be like tumor McNuggets. This is your rescue food. And in fact, it leads me to an important question I wanted to ask you anyway, which is that right now, because of the war in the Middle East, we have shortages of fertilizer, shortages of nitrogenous fertilizers, the ammonia, the urea that comes out of the natural gas systems there. And as we've seen all throughout history, whenever there's any kind of scarcity of food, there tends to be two things that happen. Number one, people shift their diets typically into lower cost foods, which very often can be more processed and more nutrient depleted. So globally now we're facing a situation where in 2027 and beyond, we're going to see many populations, perhaps billions of people, shifting into more processed, less nutrient dense diets. And then secondly, the rescue food that is typically delivered to populations that are suffering from famine, all that rescue food is food that's heavily processed to have a shelf life because it's shippable and it can sit on a pallet in a warehouse somewhere and not go rancid. And what is that? That's like ultra refined bleached white flour devoid of vitamin E that's naturally present in wheat berries, things like that. So your comments on what's coming for our world just because of the fertilizer shortage that's here.
It's going to create a scare. It is already creating a scare. People are being primed for food shortages, and people will be going to their supermarkets because they don't know where else to go to get their food, because there are very few nations around the world who actually teach the population to grow food. The one that I originally hail from, the Netherlands, is actually one of the few countries in the world where it's compulsory at school, at primary school, to learn how to grow food. They've been doing it for 100 years. So everyone in the Netherlands. Now, why did that happen in the Netherlands? Because the Netherlands has one of the highest, it probably has the highest population density of any country in the industrialized world. It is also a country that is based on a delta that had all these nutrients flowing down the Rhine River system, which created this extraordinary boom in agriculture when it was set up about 1,000 years ago. And then guess what happened? All the nutrients depleted because they over-farmed it. Then they became totally reliant on fertilizers. And now there's a big debate as to what to do. So the push that the Dutch government is now under from the people that are attempting to control the global totalitarian system is get rid of your farms. Farming is bad.
What?
Get used to the fact that you're going to have to consume lab-grown food. So already the population is being conditioned into that. So these ideas that are tested in particular parts of the world, they will come back to roost unless the people take control of their lives and start to do the kind of thing that Todd is doing right now, because it's not that difficult. It's the most extraordinarily satisfying thing. My whole background was in sustainable agriculture, academically in sustainable agriculture, looking at smallholder farming systems. And it's extraordinary if you look at the power of those so-called subsistence farming systems in say sub-Saharan Africa. They were being pushed towards a system that was forcing genetically modified foods on them. But when they were being asked to accept GMOs, they were also being told, you got to buy seeds from a limited number of suppliers, primarily Monsanto, now Bayer. You have to buy the pesticides, the glyphosate, from the same companies. And there was a huge report, the ISTAT report back in 2008, that looked at it was 400 scientists from 60 countries got together. The predominant ones were in the developing countries. And they basically said, we don't want to play this game. We do not want to have all the agricultural resource of the world in the hands of a few major corporations. We can do this ourselves. Our subsistence farming systems have crops that are epigenetically adapted to the environments that we live in. And we've got a whole shed load of local foods that we've stopped eating since you've forced new agricultural systems on us. So there's all this indigenous knowledge that is, there are small numbers of people trying to reclaim this, but we need to do this all over the world. We need to do it in America. We need to do it in Europe. We need to do it in Africa and Asia and elsewhere. That is how we decentralize power.
There was a time when, and Todd, I'll turn it back over to you, and I know Jonathan wants to chime in on this, but let me just mention briefly. I covered the history of pumpernickel bread in the Westphalia region, the pre-Germanic populations. That bread and the bacterial cultures that produced the things like the lactic acid, changed the pH, made the bread have shelf life, and also made available the nutrients of the rye, the zinc, and the iron in particular, because those populations were zinc and iron deficient. We're talking centuries ago. That bread saved that civilization and allowed it to grow and flourish. And yet today, we are living on shadow food compared to what those ancestors ate, in that case, the northern, pre-Germanic populations. But isn't it astonishing how we've lost so much knowledge of what food is?
That's right. If you look at the Chorleywood process, which was developed in the 1960s in the UK, that Hovis and other bread companies used, you see, people still talk about bread as bread. If you look at many of the dishes, the classical dishes in any culture. There have been some great studies done in Southeast Asia and elsewhere. They still have the same names, so the foods appear the same as the foods that our great grandparents were consuming. But if you look at the nutritional profile,
totally different.
Is a different beast altogether. And that is if you look in Asia, what's happening with obesity, look at certain things that are very obvious when you know the science, but there is no public health effort being spent on it at all. One of them is the use of the electric rice cooker. The electric rice cooker means that when you consume rice that is permanently hot and has never had a chance to cool, it has no resistant starch in it. So it is literally like injecting your bloodstream with glucose. Whereas classically, what people did was boil a whole bunch of rice early in the morning, let it cool, and that would be eaten tepid along with hot food. If you look at the Okinawans in Japan, 70% or more of their diet is sweet potato. And until recent times when they've started eating McDonald's and all the rest of it, they were some of the healthiest people on the planet. That's why they're one of the blue zones. Now, they did that with a massive amount of carbohydrate. How did they get that way? Because they cooked up the purple sweet potato early in the morning. It would allow it to be cooled. It would turn into resistant starch. It has all the polyphenols from the external parts of it, and the rest of it feeds the gut microbiome. So, the science is out there. There's so many ways in which it could be used by public health authorities. But I mean, Jonathan and I have had an experience recently. We're in the middle of it right now, where we are asking the US government to permit statements about the health, the nutrient disease relationship that it itself has published, that is part of the FDA Modernization Act, that tells you about diseases that can be supported, helped, treated by specific nutrients. And we put in a petition. We found some 450 of these claims in different agency websites, particularly NIH, but also FDA, CDC, etc. We specifically applied for over 100 of them and said, look, these are low-hanging fruit. The science is crystal clear. They still disallowed them. So we're initiating a lawsuit against them.
Yeah, I think my organization is participating in that lawsuit.
You absolutely are, Mike. You absolutely are. Thank you so much for that support.
It's just extraordinary. But Todd, to you on this.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, you know me. 2 observations, and then I have a question. So my first observation is only Mike Adams takes a deep dive into pumpernickel bread. I'm just saying.
It's fascinating food history. Yeah, it matters.
Only Mike Adams. Yeah. And then, I want to educate everybody in the audience. I know you know it, but Hegelian dialectic, I think, Jonathan, you were referring to earlier with the problem, reaction, solution with the pandemic. And of course, the problem was COVID, the boogie virus, right? And the reaction was everybody just became utterly fearful of killing their grandma and all of that. We all remember that. But the solution, I do have to give the Druid Babylonian bastards a little bit of credit, because the solution was the mRNA vaccine, but it did come with a free Dunkin' Donut. So there's that, guys. All right. No, in all seriousness, I think we all agree that further regulatory tightening occurring is when, not if. And the notion of building parallel health systems, it sounds really great, but is a giant task when we consider the need for what? Local growers, herbalists, nutrition groups, direct pay practitioners, home remedies, AI tools, and community knowledge networks. So my question to you both, either, where do we start?
Well, I think we start with what the ANH is actually doing.
Great. Unpack that.
The Arizona statement is a good part for all of us to unite together. if everybody signs that Arizona statement, that empowers us, yes, but it also empowers them because we use that statement to press the point in Congress, the White House, regulatory agencies, that tens of thousands of Americans and people worldwide, but tens of thousands of Americans in particular, have said, these are the principles we believe in that are derived really from our founding principles. And these are the changes we expect to have happen in order to reduce the size and scope of government and expand individual liberty and freedom of choice. We know, based on the principles that are articulated there, we know that unless this happens, you will never solve the chronic disease epidemic in America. You may not care about that, big government, but we do. And in fact, it's of paramount importance, because when you have 90 some odd percent of adults in America with at least one chronic disease, we are unique in the world in that record. And we spend $15,000 per capita on healthcare in America, more than any other nation in the world, almost by double from the next highest one. And yet we are 60th or 70th in the world in longevity, and we are equal in the absence of healthy later years. So we're losing, not only are we losing the battle, but the projection is that 97% is going to go to 100%. That when you look at the trend lines, every year it gets worse. So if you want to solve this problem, you have to fight. And ANH is dedicated to taking all of the legal steps, the suits, the efforts that are necessary to prevail in this battle. Will we win? We only have to win some of it to gain enormously. But over time, we will win. And why do I say that? Because I believe that those founding principles define who we are. Mm-hmm. Basically, as a people, if you ask ourselves, who are Americans? What is an American? The distinguishing characteristic between an American and the rest of the world are those principles in the second paragraph of the Declaration. And it is, here is the 250th anniversary, and more people, obviously every American, should understand those principles. But the key to our happiness, the key to our longevity, the key to our success as a people, the key to the future for our children is tied up in those principles. In our area of endeavor where we're fighting, it's tied up in what determines whether we will live or die, whether we will have chronic disease in America or not, whether we will see people have cognitive abilities and physical strength necessary to defend this nation, or whether we will just be big, flabby, virtually immobile life forms that live nasty, brutish, and short existences.
Yeah,
so, I mean,
but on universal basic income, don't forget, they'll be on universal basic income, so everything will be fine. They'll earn nothing but be happy.
I call the UBI universal basic ignorance, because that's on everything. It's everything. It's just so. But information is the key. Let me give out your website, because, folks, the Alliance for Natural Health is the key organization that is leading the charge on the legal front and the regulatory front to fight this. So it's anh-usa.org, and you can do a couple of things. You can click on Join Us. You should become a member. And you can also click on Donate if you'd like to offer a contribution that is likely tax deductible. So... but you check with your accountant on that. Now, of course, we are supporting members. We support the lawsuits and so on to fight for health freedom. And in wrapping this up here, both of you gentlemen, is there anything else you'd like to add here? I just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing for humanity. It's absolutely critical. But what would you like to add here as we wrap this up?
Well, Mike, the bottom line is that the deception, the narrative fallacy that is being created, if you look at any complex situation, the opportunity for information to be communicated to the public while they hide truthful information, is huge. So you've got a public that is in a space of cognitive dissonance. One of the most fundamental ways in which that works is that all of this effort gets placed on the disease management system. So virtually none of it is put into creating health. And you need a decentralized system. You need a biomedical ethics framework that works, that, you know, regards the sanctity of the therapeutic relationship between the physician and the patient. You need the patient to be at the center of all decision making. There's a lot of lip service paid to that, but if you look at what medical boards are doing around America, most doctors are scared, you know, just about maintaining their profession, and they're looking over their shoulders of what their medical board is allowing them to do. So we need to see this reframing of where the locus of control is in our health, and it lies, you know, with the individual, with the household, with the decisions that we make every day, those thousands of health choices that over decades determine whether we're going to be healthy or not. And of course, we also have Bobby Kennedy in place. One of the reasons we've come up with the Arizona statement is because we kind of were waiting for him to do it. And when we looked at what he wasn't doing, what he wasn't setting out a game plan of the fundamental reform across the board that needed to be done, we did it instead. And we got a whole bunch of people, as Jonathan explained, together so we could have a big think tank and a brainstorm over it. We worked this out over 3 or 4 days. And that's in the statement. We really call on you to sign up to it. We need as many people as possible. Put it out to your networks. We really appreciate the support as well. But we need to be the agents of change ourselves, because government ain't going to do it for us.
We'll be covering the Arizona statement editorially and also in my podcast. But Jonathan, what would you like to add before we wrap this up?
Freedom. Really, if you sum up everything that we've talked about today, it's about individual liberty. And if we get government out of the way, if we empower people and protect their rights to exercise choice, all of these things fall into place quite naturally. But if you do the opposite and you assume that the government can decide for you what to eat, what information you can receive, and how you can conduct your life, you're in for a brutal existence, because you will simply be a slave to the state. And we've got to realize that. And if we do, and we open up the channels and allow all this information out, I'm confident we can defeat the chronic disease epidemic in America. And I'm confident that we can be happy, and that our future generations will live a life that really is an American existence in the true sense of that word.
Well said. And I think as long as we have people like you, we can defeat the systems that are allied against the interests of humanity. So thank you both for all that you do and for taking the time to join us today out of your very busy schedules. It's always an honor to have you here. And Todd and I both thank you very much for your time.
Great to be with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen. Cheers.
All right. Well, folks, we will be right back after this break with the after party discussion with Todd and I, and it should be a fun one and very informative. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. Join the official discussion channel for this show on Telegram at t.me/decentralizedtv, where you can ask questions or offer suggestions of who we should interview next. Also be sure to subscribe to the email newsletter on Decentralized.tv, where you'll be alerted about 1 day in advance of each new upcoming episode, before it gets published. On Decentralized.tv, you'll also find links to our video channels and social media channels across all platforms, including Brighteon, Rumble, BitChute, Twitter, Truth Social, and more. Check it all out at Decentralized.tv. All right, welcome back, everybody. This is the after party. Wow. You know, Todd, I'm humbled to have guests like we had today on the show. Just brilliant.
Me too. Well, I just like sitting back and just witnessing unconscious competence. You know, I mean, They both display it in spades.
Yeah,
it's amazing. It's like I'm sitting here thinking, wow. all we need to do is give a little breadcrumb, and then they can take it for, a long time and deliver just amazing education, right? I just felt educated.
Well, Jonathan Emord, his nickname is the FDA Dragon Slayer.
Yeah, right.
Because
you can tell.
Yeah. He's a human encyclopedia of history, American history, the rule of law, the Constitution, and also the regulatory environment.
Right. And he has a heart of gold.
Yes. He's a formidable attorney in the eyes of the FDA and HHS.
I bet. I wouldn't want to go up against him.
No. No.
You know what I mean?
No.
But I loved how he, both of them, they unpacked the kind of simple summary of the whole frickin' interview, which is having a life chronic death plan versus a preventative lifestyle, Mike, when you think about it, right? Pennies a day and reasonable, healthy life decisions versus going bankrupt in the hospital, be due to chronic conditions. And it all comes back to just what you evangelize, Mike, which is healthy lifestyle decisions and food as medicine. Yes?
Yeah, exactly. And it's amazing. Just talking to them reminds me that my original mission as the health ranger was simply to teach people how to lead healthier, happier, more abundant lives, more productive lives. I did not know when I started that would make me an enemy of the state.
Who would have thought it?
Right. Because you think, we want to help fellow Americans be healthier. That must be good for society. Not for the corporate interests. Yes?
You didn't start that whole initiative just as part of your game plan saying, okay, number 9 is I want to be deplatformed. Number 10, I want to be debanked. No.
Right. And then, and I realized, I've been at this for almost 25 years.
Thank you.
If our government back in the early 2000s, if they had embraced people like me and Dr. Mercola and Robert Scott Bell and so many others, if they had made us the voices to follow for healthy living,
oh my gosh,
our country would be so much more prosperous. Our people would be healthier, happier. Our healthcare costs would be a fraction of what they are today. We would be on much better footing. We'd be more competitive with China and Russia or whatever. But instead, our government chose the path to silence the voices of truth and reason and to trap people in a cycle of dependence on processed junk food and nutrient-depleted garbage that leads to a lifetime of dependence on toxic pharmaceuticals and chemotherapy.
Well, the latter, Mike, is a little bit more profitable, don't you think?
That's exactly how it ended up, is they just sold out the American people to have profits for certain corporate interests.
Can I ask you a question? I was wanting to ask Jonathan at the end his thoughts, but is RFK Jr. just a poser?
My perception of RFK Jr., because I've interviewed him several times, is that he has all the knowledge that we have about the dangers of these jabs and the promise of natural medicine and so on. He has all that knowledge. But he's working in a system that is impossible to reform from within. End of story.
Okay.
There's literally nothing that he can do to achieve the goals outlined in the Arizona statement that we were talking about during the show.
Okay.
And the one thing that we really didn't have time to talk about with Jonathan and Robert there was the fact that the only reform actually is collapse.
You're right.
That's the only way this really changed. Now, Jonathan might argue with that. He'd say, well, there's lawsuits. They have had some success. We can tweak things in the current system, and that is important. I'm not denying that. But I'm saying to really achieve the wholesale reforms that are needed to honor human life and actually encourage health and abundance across our land, that can never come from the current system, period.
I think you're right, Mike. I mean, unfortunately, I think you're right. It's,
Yeah.
And when it does, the good news is more parking for us, I guess. I don't know.
Well, and you're hinting at the other thing that we also didn't talk about during the show, which is that the system is not trying to keep you healthy.
No.
The system is trying to kill you, actually.
Yeah.
Like literally.
On purpose with
On
intent.
purpose. Yeah. So, if you want, well, why does the government want people to have cancer? Because they want you to die. Because that's going to save the government money on Social Security and Medicare, disability, and federal pensions and all of it.
They want you to die. It's going to get us to the goal of the Georgia Guidestones, which we discuss on another episode.
Yeah, I mean, depopulation is the real core motivation above all of it.
Right.
And I'm not saying that your doctor at your hospital wants you to die, but your doctor is a product of a system that's run by people who do want you to die.
I evoke something every day when I do these consultations for the UNAs, Mike, which is just like they don't teach nutrition in med school, they don't teach UNAs in accounting or law school.
Right.
Because they do not teach nutrition in med school. So I think about my primary physician, right? And I love the dude. He's a great guy, and he's been very cool with all of the just everything, but he never once has provided me anything proactive as suggesting food could be medicine in a preventative lifestyle,
And that's bonkers. It's total bonkers because like in my life, for me, food is the very first medicine. If I'm thinking, even if somebody asks me a question like, what should I do about this or that?
Yeah.
I start with food. What are you eating?
Right.
And did you know about this? And the level of ignorance across the population about what's food, what's in food.
Right.
What are the toxins? What are the ingredients? The level of ignorance is just truly astonishing. I can't believe it.
It's so funny when you were talking about you can't go to a grocery store anymore based upon what you see in other people's carts. I support my tribe of raccoons in the back, right, and deer and stuff. So I go to BJ's Wholesale and I get these oatmeal raisin cookies, which they love, and lots of grapes and some peanuts, right? And when I go in there, that's all I get, Mike. It's all I get. But when I look around and observe these big buy one, get another huge one free, it is all, I swear, it's all poison. I feel like I'm walking through a den of poison.
Yeah, it is.
This is the food that people are buying, putting in their carts, and they're thinking they're getting a great deal on it because more poison is better because it's cheaper. What do you think about that?
The way people even use language, I saw an article the other day that was talking about how soda prices are going higher. And the article concluded this is part of the reason why groceries are more expensive. And I was like, soda is groceries? What are you talking about? Soda's not groceries. When I think of groceries, I'm like carrots and celery and a bag of apples and a bag of lentils and a bag of, quinoa or rice. Like, soda's not groceries. It's some weird artificial thing, there's phosphoric acid and sugar and whatever else. So, but people think that's food. That's part of the problem.
Oh, it's a huge part of the problem. People think, McDonald's is food. I mean, any of that fast food. It's just, people are just absolutely brainwashed. And I don't know, maybe humanity gets what they deserve. But this leads me to my first question, Mike, for the after party lightning round.
Oh, you prepared a lightning round. Uh-oh.
Yes or no for you. I love these.
All right.
I love these.
Go for it. I'm ready.
This is my happy place, Mike.
All right.
Okay, the first one I chuckled at myself. Scale of 1 to 10, Mike, with 10 being, oh, hell yeah. Is America over-medicated?
Yeah. That's a 10. That's a full 10 right there.
Is chronic disease now one of the biggest business models in America?
Of course, yeah. Keeping people sick. Yeah,
Has Big Pharma... Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. Has Big Pharma become more politically powerful than elected government?
Well, I mean, yeah, pharma, I think, is the number 1 or 2 lobby. It's called pharma. That's the name of the lobby.
Right.
And there's big oil, big pharma, and big Zionists. Like those are the 3 big, lobbies that control the government. That's it.
Yeah. So I think that's a yes. So
Yeah.
Is food now one of the most weaponized industries on earth?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
and you know what's weird is that the weapons industry builds weapons that often don't work, but the food industry builds weapons that definitely
Good
are
point.
toxic. Yeah. The food
Good
industry
point.
builds better weapons than the weapons industry, is my point.
I was going to ask, do most doctors receive insufficient nutritional training? But we just covered that.
Yeah.
Will decentralized AI eventually outperform centralized healthcare systems? do you
Yeah,
think?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. The most dangerous ingredients in the average American, I'm sorry, the most dangerous ingredient in the average American diet is?
I can only choose one.
Yeah, that's true. Give it a shot. Give it a shot.
Well,
what would be
okay, seed oils then.
That's what I thought you'd say.
Okay, but the second one would be excitotoxins, which would be all the different forms of MSG that cause brain damage.
Okay.
You know, neurotoxic ingredients. Yeah.
Okay, great.
But hold on, Todd. But then, there are things that are not on the label and are not considered ingredients, but the food is saturated with it that are neurotoxins, such as organophosphate pesticide chemicals. So, see, people think that if it's in the food, it must be on the label. Not true at all. There's no requirement.
What you should invest in? You should invest in a mass spectrometer so that you could test your own food, Mike, and actually sell really clean food that doesn't have all that shit. Oh wait,
we've done that. Yes. But hold on. There's one more thing.
Yeah.
And very few people know this, but I am in the food business. We're in the manufacturing business, supplements, etc. HealthRangerStore.com if you want to get lab tested clean food.
Yep.
But when you're in the business, you learn some pretty shocking things about what is allowed. For example, the FDA allows things called excipients to be used in supplements and food or flow agents that never have to be listed on the label.
Wow.
You can have a supplement that has a shockingly high percentage of excipients and flow agents, which could be anything from corn-derived ingredients, let's say, different starches or whatever. And you don't have to list them on the label. And then there's also the fact that USDA Organic does not require any testing for pesticides or heavy metals.
Nuts.
Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. The USDA program audits your inputs into your farm to make sure that you didn't buy glyphosate or whatever. You didn't buy all these synthetic chemicals. But there's no requirement at all to test the end result product.
Whoa.
Yeah. So USDA Organic doesn't mean it's clean food.
Wow.
Yeah, people don't know that.
Wow. I didn't know that. Jeez, that sucks.
Yeah, you would think that there would be some requirement for testing.
Yeah.
But there isn't.
Well, that's disturbing. Wow. So 2 more, Mike. That's
Okay.
all.
All right.
The most censored topic in nutrition today is?
Cancer cures.
Oh, good one. Good one. All right. And the last one, most Americans would dramatically improve their health if they simply. Oh man, it's just I'm having an encyclopedia of options here. Right.
If they simply stopped using sunscreen, man. I mean, just that right there. Not only are you blocking the healthy sun rays and the vitamin D that you probably desperately need, but then you're coating your skin with all these toxic cancer-causing chemicals and fragrance molecules that are very toxic. And then, right now it's kind of early summer here in Texas, and people, they'll spray themselves with mosquito repellent products that contain neurotoxins. Like DEET or whatever. And you ask them, like, hey, does that product work? Like, yeah, man, the mosquitoes, they stay far away. Like, why do you think that is? And, eventually they answer, because it's poison to the mosquitoes? Yes. It's poisonous to the mosquitoes. They don't want to come near your skin where there's poison that is neurotoxic. Huh.
Jeez.
Is that a good idea?
Wow. That's amazing.
You know, we could do a whole show on this. Maybe we will one day.
You know what? I think there's a product in there, Deep Woods Off combined with sunscreen, 70.
Oh man, and then people get cancer and they get diagnosed by an oncologist and the doctor tells them the phrase, "There's nothing you could have done to stop this."
Right.
That bullshit.
Right.
There's 100 things you could have done.
Well, and it's back to the chronic death plan versus preventative lifestyle, right? I mean, pennies a day in reasonable health life decisions versus, getting cancer and dying. I mean,
it's about being an adult and taking responsibility for your own health outcome. And of course, on this show, we reach adult-minded people,
Yes.
mature, sophisticated, informed people. But you talk about the 98% of NPCs in society. If you think about it, they are child mind people. So there's a child, like a 6-year-old, is like, "Mommy, give me lollipops because, it's sweet and sugary." There are 50-year-old children in the donut section of the grocery store right now shopping for the same reason.
100%.
Yeah.
And then you stared, you're like, "Bruh, really?" And then you stare down at the cart and you've got the 6 liters of Coke and the frozen pizzas and it's just,
it's like when you're 5 years old, it's understandable that you think your mouth is an amusement park.
Right.
Okay. Because, it's a childlike thing to do. When you're 30, your mouth is not an amusement park. Hopefully, you should be eating for purpose, which is nourishment.
Right. Yes.
But incredibly in America, people never move into that phase. The vast majority never. No. They never think that food should be about nourishment.
Nope, they don't. And the processed food is an addiction, is an addictive food. Right?
Yeah.
So when people give into that, I mean, I really think that there's a lot of science behind, keeping people addicted to these flavors and the feel and the energy rush and all of this stuff. But people don't stop and think, is this fueling my body? It's fueling my taste buds, but it is harming my body. And people just don't reconcile that.
Right. No, I've actually had conversations with people in years past who were type 2 diabetic and they were on insulin and they were living on ice cream and Pop-Tarts. And they would ask me, like, what can I do to not need as much insulin? And I would answer things like, well, have you looked into your selenium levels? Have you looked into things that would increase the sensitivity of the uptake of insulin, your cellular sensitivity? Sometimes nutrient deficiencies can cause insulin resistance and so on. And very often the answer would be, great, so I can keep eating my ice cream. Like, jeez. Dude, did you hear any? That is not the right answer. The right answer is you're lacking nutrition and you're eating too much sugar and you have a sedentary lifestyle and you're probably vitamin D deficient and mineral deficient. It's not like, how can I still eat more ice cream? If that's your quest, you're asking the wrong questions.
Yeah, you're going to be one of those that are like, what did Jonathan say, that people are on average dying at 75 now? It's just like, wow,
I don't know about you, but I keep getting news of people I went to high school dying. We're not even 60 yet. I
hear you. I hear you.
You too?
Happening. Oh my gosh. Not only that, well, I'm not going to say, but there's somebody much younger than my age that, lived that health style that you were talking about. And,
I mean, the ice cream heavy approach.
Yeah. Man. Sitting on the front.
It's crazy.
Porch. Yep.
But then for, getting back to our guest today, what Jonathan and what Robert and all of us, what we advocate is simply knowledge, because knowledge can save you. Knowledge will save your life.
Well, and that's Mike. Why don't you tell people about your engine where people can go ask it questions?
Oh,
and
sure. Okay, I'll bring it up.
Because that is the knowledge that is pure. It's.
So right here, Answers.ai. This is one site. This is free to use, and you can ask it anything about nutrition, and it's amazing because it's based on millions of documents that are indexed that it searches. Like when you type a question here first, it spends 6 or 7 seconds actually searching an elaborate database for documents, and then it cites those documents in the answer. The thing is,
Mike, enter this in. How might I defeat diabetes or something similar?
Okay. Using nutrition or natural solutions.
Perfect.
All right. So this is just the free version that's running right now, and it's going to start spitting out some answers here and citing some articles. But if you use a token on this, it will cite science papers and things like that. But as you can see here, it's talking about exercise, it's talking about eliminating processed foods, it's talking about herbs and superfoods, prioritizing detoxification, and so on. So it's giving a whole foods diet, healthy fats, coconut oil, avocado, low glycemic, nuts and fruits. It's giving herbal medicines, cinnamon, etc., glucose metabolism, etc., detoxification, and so on. So,
and then below you have books, right?
Yeah, then it's mentioning books that are related to this. Natural Solutions, The Thyroid Reset, Calm and Connected. For some reason, the Goat Handbook got in here because goats don't have much type 2 diabetes. Survival Essentials and so on. So anyway, that's just a quick demo of the engine.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then we have this other engine called Learn.ai. And if you go to books.brightlearn.ai, then you can download books on all of these solutions. So let me just mention, for example, let me search diabetes right here. Okay. And it'll pull up an assortment of books, Reversing the Sugar Code.
Wow.
Here's Reversión Dieta. This is the Spanish language version that we have here.
That's so cool.
We've been doing a lot of translations. We have the statin deception, the copper code, the statin diabetes paradox. There we go. Reversal code, blood sugar balance. These are all free. The sugar shift. Huh? How about that? Reclaim your blood sugar. The diabetes revolution. On and on. You can download all these books completely free.
Now, if you ask the same question in ChatGPT, it would say, go to your local physician.
Yeah. Take more pharmaceuticals. Yeah. Take insulin shots. Yeah. It's all the entire tech ecosystem is completely dominated by big pharma and Western medicine.
Yeah.
And the vaccine industry on top of that too. It's pretty wild.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. That's why our guests today are so important. A&H USA, Jonathan Emord, his work, because we are on the right side of history. We're on the side of health and abundance and natural medicine, nutrition for prevention of disease. It costs a fraction to prevent cancer compared to the extraordinarily high cost of treating it. So if we were wise as a nation, as a culture, as a planet, we would focus on prevention.
Isn't that the truth?
It's not complicated.
I mean, you would have a financial planner that would speak to you about, the cost of chronic disease versus the ounce of prevention, right? Instead of talking to you about, an IRA and a 401k and stuff like that. If you really want to keep more of what you earn long term, right, you need to treat your body well, so you don't spend it all in big medicine, big pharma.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of that, I want to back up here. Under audiobooks on the site now, I think it's your book about the Unincorporated Nonprofit Association. that is available as an audiobook here. I'm going to have to find it, but I think it's in here. We've got Vibe Unlocked. Oh, here it is. Here's one. UNA 575E Asset Protection Blueprint. You can download the MP3 file. Here it is.
There you go.
Right here.
There you go.
And that's free. You just have to go there and click on it. So, Todd, why don't you tell us about what this is, the 575E, and I'll bring up your website.
I think if this is the first time people have watched the show, the best thing I can do for you is just encourage you to go to my575e.com and learn about the Unincorporated Nonprofit Association. And on the landing page, if you just hit Let's Go, it'll take you where you enter your name and email address, and that'll give you access to the next training page where I have a 90-minute interview of the subject matter expert on UNAs in the nation, and his name is Dennis Gray. He's been helping people acquire UNAs for over 40 years. He's helped over 3,000 people acquire UNAs.
Wow.
Not an issue in the entire 40 years if you just, acquire one and operate it like he suggests and I suggest. Now, I've been at this on this show for almost 3 years now, Mike, and I've helped over 600 people acquire these, and we have a private Telegram group that is the most amazing community in Telegram. I'll put it up against anybody because they've all come through our show, Mike, and probably 80% of them have taken the step to not only learn about the UNA and download the PDF that has 32 positive attributes of operating a UNA, and why should somebody acquire a UNA? Well, listen, if you're a W-2 earner, 1099 earner, if you operate an LLC, if you own property, if you trade in crypto, if you are into precious metals, my goodness gracious, learn about the UNA, whether you self-custody or if you have your metals vaulted. I can help you save 28% capital gains taxes if you acquire UNA and follow my strategy. Also, if you have property and children, and you want to keep everything out of probate. Those are just a few reasons, Mike, why people would want to acquire UNA. But the 80% of the group, I will tell you, Mike, they have had a private consultation with me. And that's what I suggest mostly. Learn about these through the free resources within the website. But then if your interest is piqued, guys, just simply book a private consultation with me. It is $150, but as everybody knows, you get that back if you move forward with the UNA. You just deduct it. The only reason why I've ever charged anything, as you know, Mike, is that when people didn't show up to the calls, and you said, Todd, I know what will remedy that. So thank you, Mike. But I was thinking go ahead, Mike.
Well, by the way, I was just mentioning your organization in a podcast that I just recently released. I was talking about why I was encouraging people to really invest in a home off-grid solar system, to build out a solar infrastructure, to get ready for the energy scarcity that's going to get a lot worse. And I even said, for those who don't know maybe how they're going to pay for it, I said, if you have to sell gold and silver to build your own electrical infrastructure, do it, but get a UNA first.
Right. 100%.
Right.
100%.
And learn about why that's an important step to consider.
Yeah. And I was thinking during today's interview, I'm thinking about, we were talking about my food forest a bit, and I'm just thinking, man, I was able to install that food forest because I had a UNA 7.5 years ago, and I was able to keep way more of what I earned, Mike. And it was because of that I had the discretionary spend to be able to hire foodforestabundance.com to come in and install the permaculture food forest properly, right?
Yeah.
I did not have that UNA. I likely would not have done it, Mike, because I would not have had the discretionary spend.
It's an avenue to more financial freedom.
It is.
Yeah, and it's also codified under California law.
It is. It was created by California legislators for California legislators.
That's
75 years ago.
And it's when you create one, the Secretary of State of California signs off on it and approves it.
Right. Yep. does the IRS.
Yeah, they sign off on it, they approve it, they give you a number, and there you go. You're off to the races. All right, so that's something that's really important to check out. And by the way, Todd, I was typing in your website, my575e.com over here, and for some reason on this TRS-80, it didn't work. It wouldn't pull up the website that I'm typing over here. Can you show that? Yeah, I've been typing over here, and it's not pulling up any. The screen's blank. Is your website down, Todd? What's going on?
It must be. It must be. The green screen is blank.
This, by the way, this is an old CRT. It's so curved. It's so curved. I'm looking at it from here. It's so. I didn't remember that the screens were that curved.
Wow.
They're convex, man. I mean, my goodness. Did we really stare at those things?
Boy.
All day?
And I wonder if that worked, if it would be green, right?
Yeah, I think this is green. I'm pretty sure it's green. Yeah. Green phosphor.
I remember with my first job I had coming out of high school. College, was with R. Donnelly. I was a print salesperson. They were a great company. That was a great company. And I had one of those on my desk.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember it was green. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And you know what's wild about it is back behind the CRT is an ion gun. It's an ion gun that's hitting the screen line by line for the resolution and lighting up the screen with the ion gun. So you're actually like staring into an ion gun.
Are they negative ions? Could we plant that in the back of plug that into the back of my food forest?
Well, no, they get consumed when they hit the screen, but fortunately we still have eyesight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's good point.
Like, I guess it didn't make us go blind after all. But I'm glad we shifted over to like OLED displays and things like that.
Yeah.
But now we have a lot more blue light, which is a different health problem, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But maybe we should go back to the TRS-80, huh?
Why not? Why not? Well, let's wait till you get your eBay equipment in, and then we'll discern which device we want to go back to.
Yeah, I have an Apple IIe coming that apparently boots, and it comes with its own DOS. Yeah, remember when you turn on an old Apple IIe, it had to load up the operating system from the floppy drive.
Yep,
and then, a couple of minutes later, it would give you a prompt, which is the operating system.
That's right.
And then there was no help. You couldn't even type help, /help. Nope, nothing. There was no AI. There was no internet.
I can't wait for you to get that in and it works and you demo it. It's going to be fun.
You might be giving me more credit. It's been decades since I used one of those. I'm going to have to look at a manual. Like, what do I do with this thing?
I don't know, but I'm sure you'll figure it out like you figured out pumpernickel bread.
All right. Yeah. Well, pumpernickel. Okay. Pumper Apple is the computer.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So anyway, Todd, I think we're done with this after party here today.
Yes, sir.
It was a great episode and great guests and a very important message for our time. And I just want to encourage all of our viewers, if you haven't seen the other episodes of this show, they're great. They keep getting more amazing, I think, just because of the quality of the guests that we're getting. And it's just like, wow, every time. Anyway, go to decentralized.tv and you can find all the episodes there. And we're going to be improving the website within 60 days or so to have it more searchable and more interaction with related materials and things like that. So that's all coming. So here's the website, decentralized.tv, and all the episodes we have here. And there's a lot more features coming for this site. So, wow, we've interviewed a lot of really interesting people here.
We've done a lot. Now, when you get to the bottom of that, I will say that I was doing a little bit of research on our site. And when you get to the bottom of the landing page, it just kind of stops. So it doesn't have the next 10 or whatever. And so at least on my mobile phone. So I went up to the upper right or wherever.
Here's the view all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah. Okay.
because we've directed people to go back to some of these episodes. So just make sure that you go up and you hit view all. So
Okay. Yeah, we'll improve that. We'll make sure we put
Perfect.
the pagination down there.
Beautiful.
But anyway, a lot of other improvements are coming to the site.
Yep.
So I can't wait. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I can't believe next month is going to be our 3rd anniversary, Mike.
That's amazing.
I mean, in June. Yeah, in June.
Wow.
Yep.
Huh, really?
I sent you a message with a suggestion, so stay tuned. Everybody.
Okay. All right. I can't wait. It'll be a fun episode for sure.
Yeah, it will be.
All right. We should have like a robot jump out of a giant cake or something,
Yeah,
like
why not?
Celebratory,
Right.
dancing robot anniversary or something. But we still don't have any robots here because nobody will sell us robots yet.
No, you can have
For our
Rhodey
testing.
jump out of the cake. Rhodey will jump out of the cake.
Rhodey will jump out of the cake. Okay.
With 3 rings, and then every year he'll jump out of the cake with a 4th ring and a 5th ring to celebrate our anniversary.
That's true. Well, then we could go for a long time because
we could go for a long.
His
long
record is 21 rings.
Is it really?
Yeah, because he stacks them on his neck and then his mouth, and it's wild. I've got a picture of it. It's crazy. It's 21 rings.
Unbelievable.
I know. I was like,
and he does it all without you assisting.
He just wants to do it. He's the ring master.
He is the ring master.
If you just put a pile of rings there, he will try to put them all on.
Mike, I have an editorial suggestion.
Yeah.
Just do your whistle thing and insert a picture of him with his 21 rings at the end of this show.
Oh, okay. All right.
A great
now I got to
bookend.
find that photo. Or I could stack 25 rings and give him a whole new challenge.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Video it.
How about that? Yeah.
That would be fun. Video it. That'd be a blast. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Todd. And thank you all for watching today. And check the other episodes at Decentralized.tv. So I hope you. Yep.
Awesome. My alarm went off, and I thought, I have a UNA consult I got to get to.
Do you really?
Yeah, but that's cool. We're
okay. We're finishing up just in time. Okay.
Perfect.
Have a great consultation, and we'll talk to you all later.
Bet.
Take care.
All right. Cheers.
Stock up on the long-term storable Ranger Bucket Set. 536 servings of clean organic superfoods for your survival pantry. Certified organic and lab tested for purity. Order now at healthrangerstore.com.